Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss our latest stories. My name is Ryan, I'm 25, and I work as a software developer at a small tech company just outside the city. I've been friends with Ethan since college, and we've stayed close all these years. Today's story is about an unexpected day that changed everything for me and his family. Ethan and I have known each other for years, but I've always been drawn to his mom, Linda. She has this warmth and energy that's simply captivating. Every time I visited, I would often end up chatting with her, sometimes even more than I did with Ethan. She's easygoing, laughs at my jokes, and honestly, she's beautiful. There's something magnetic about her that I just couldn't ignore. So when I had a free day, I decided to surprise Ethan with a visit. I didn't think too much about it, grabbed my keys, and drove over without calling ahead. I thought it'd be a fun, spontaneous catch-up. When I arrived, Ethan wasn't home, but Linda opened the door looking surprised to see me. She greeted me warmly, laughing softly as she invited me inside. "Well, this is a surprise," she said with that signature smile. "Ethan didn't mention you were coming?" I smiled and rubbed the back of my neck. "I thought I'd surprise him," I replied. She laughed and stepped aside. "Well, he's not here, but you're welcome to stay until he gets back." Just then, a heavy rainstorm started, pouring down suddenly, making it hard to leave. Linda glanced out the window, raised an eyebrow, and turned back to me. "You're definitely not going anywhere in this weather," she said, her smile widening. "Looks like you'll have to stay a little longer." I nodded, secretly happy for the excuse to stay. She led me to the living room where we settled in. The sound of the rain created a quiet, intimate atmosphere as we sat and chatted. I couldn't help but appreciate her presence more and more. Linda offered me a warm cup of tea as the rain beat against the windows. Sitting there in the cozy living room, we talked about work, life, and of course, a little about Ethan. Her laughter was soft and inviting, making me feel at home. Every so often, our eyes would meet, lingering a little longer than usual, and I felt that subtle spark between us. As we spoke, she leaned back in her chair, casually crossing her legs. I couldn't help but notice her graceful, confident posture. She was 50, yes, but there was something timeless about her. Her energy, her smile. It all felt so youthful, and I found myself captivated. I tried to hide it, but I think she noticed because her eyes twinkled with amusement whenever I looked her way. "So Ryan," she said with a playful smirk interrupting my thoughts, "you seem awfully quiet tonight. Something on your mind?" Caught off guard, I stammered, chuckling nervously. "I guess I just didn't expect to be here like this, just the two of us." She tilted her head, her gaze warm and teasing. "Well, it's a nice surprise," she said softly. "Ethan's not around much these days, and it's good to have some company." Her words were casual, but the warmth in her tone made my pulse quicken. We continued talking, and eventually the conversation turned more personal. She shared stories about her youth, dreams she once had, and how her life had changed over the years. I found myself completely engrossed, hanging on every word. As the hours passed, the storm outside grew more intense, showing no sign of letting up. Linda glanced at the clock, then back at me with a thoughtful smile. "Looks like the weather won't clear up anytime soon," she said. "It's really coming down out there." I nodded, glancing out the window at the torrential rain. "Yeah, I don't think I'll be able to make it home tonight." She nodded, her voice soft and understanding. "Well, you're welcome to stay here if you want. Ethan's room is just down the hall," I smiled, grateful but aware of the thrill bubbling inside me. "Thanks, Linda. I'd really appreciate it." She disappeared for a moment and returned with extra blankets, placing them on the couch beside me. Our hands brushed as she handed them over, and I felt a surge of warmth spread through me, making me look up at her. She held my gaze, her expression soft and inviting, and for a moment, everything outside seemed to fade away. "You know," she said softly, almost a whisper, "I've always thought you were a charming young man, and now that you're here, it's been really nice talking, just the two of us." My heart raced. "I feel the same way, Linda," I replied. The air between us was thick with unspoken feelings. She looked at me, her eyes searching mine, and then slowly she leaned closer. I felt her warmth, the soft scent of her perfume filling the space between us. I knew in that moment that this was a moment I'd never forget. She held my gaze a moment longer, and I saw the warmth in her eyes. Then, without breaking eye contact, she reached over and brushed a loose strand of hair from my forehead, her fingers lingering longer than necessary. My breath caught as her touch sent a thrill through me, and I instinctively leaned into her hand. "Ryan," she whispered softly, almost a sigh, "you're really something." The words lingered in the air, and in that moment, I couldn't hold back anymore. Moving closer, I gently took her hand in mine. Her skin was warm and soft, and she didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned in, her lips parting slightly as if inviting me to come closer. With my heart racing, I leaned forward and brushed my lips against hers, tentatively at first. She responded, her kiss tender and warm, her hand resting gently on my cheek. We paused for a moment, and when our eyes met again, there was no hesitation between us. I wrapped my arm around her, pulling her closer as our kiss deepened, a passion that had been building all evening. She sighed softly against my lips, her hand moving to the back of my neck, pulling me in as if she, too, had been waiting for this. Her touch sent a jolt through me, and I couldn't help but let my fingers trace the curve of her waist, feeling her warmth beneath my touch. Slowly, she pulled back, her eyes gleaming with a playful glint. "You know," she whispered, "I never thought this would happen, but now—" "Well, I guess we both know where this is going." I smiled and nodded. "I'm glad it is." The rain continued to pour outside, but inside everything felt warm and close. She leaned back into the couch, pulling me with her, and I wrapped my arms around her, holding her close. Her fingers traced patterns along my back, each touch sparking new warmth between us. Our lips met again, this time deeper, more intimate. Her hands explored, her warmth inviting me as if she had been waiting for this moment just as much as I had. Her fingers slid down my arms, her touch light and teasing, and I couldn't help but smile against her lips. She looked at me with the same warmth in her eyes, her fingers resting against my chest as if feeling my heart race beneath her touch. I leaned down, kissing her neck, letting my lips linger as I felt her shiver against me. Each moment felt timeless, and I lost myself in the warmth of her embrace, our hearts beating together as the rain poured down outside. She sighed softly, arching slightly so my hand could find the curve of her waist, a perfect fit beneath my touch. Encouraged by her response, I let my hand slide slowly, tracing the outline of her back, feeling the warmth through the thin fabric of her sweater. She let out a quiet murmur, her hand coming to rest on my shoulder, pulling me closer. Her warmth enveloped me, and the feeling was magnetic. I couldn't help but lean down, brushing my lips along the side of her neck, savoring the softness of her skin and the way she shivered, tilting her head to the side to invite me further. I pressed against her slowly, making her respond more intensely, and slowly tried to slip my hands inside her sweater. It felt amazing to feel her softness, and it made me more energized. I couldn't hold back any longer to explore her more. Our eyes locked, and there was a shared understanding between us. I leaned in again, kissing her deeply, savoring each moment. My hand found her hip, and I felt her pulse quicken beneath my touch. She seemed to relax completely against me, her body molding to mine as I held her close, every touch now feeling more natural, more connected. She looked at me, her eyes warm, full of emotions we couldn't quite express. Then, with a soft smile, she leaned back into the couch, guiding my hand to her shoulder, her fingers lacing through mine. I let my other hand slide down her leg, feeling the warmth beneath my palm as I stroked her thigh softly. The closeness between us was undeniable, and our kisses slowed, savoring each moment as our connection deepened, making me lose track of everything but the feeling of her in my arms. As we pulled apart, breathless and dazed, the world outside had transformed. The rain continued to pour, casting a muted ambiance that wrapped us in our own little world. I could see the flush in her cheeks, the way her lips glistened from our kisses, igniting a spark of desire deep within me. I had never felt anything like it. a primal connection that drew me closer to her, urging me to explore further. "Maybe we should move this somewhere more comfortable," she suggested, her voice low and inviting, laced with mischief. I could only nod, a rush of exhilaration sweeping over me as she led me down the dimly lit hallway toward her bedroom. The door creaked open, revealing a space that felt both intimate and welcoming, softly lit by the warm glow of a lamp. The room was tastefully furnished, but it was her presence that truly brought it to life. She turned to face me, her gaze steady and charged with energy, the air between us thick with anticipation. As the door clicked shut behind us, the sound resonated in the silence, intensifying the moment. I stepped closer, drawn to her like a moth to a flame. My heart raced as she took a step toward me. I reached for her hand, intertwining our fingers, the warmth of her skin sending something electric through me. With a gentle tug, I pulled her closer, my other hand brushing against her waist, feeling the softness of her body against mine. She looked up at me, her eyes sparkling with desire and mischief, and I felt my resolve slip away as I leaned down, capturing her lips once more. The kiss deepened, becoming more urgent as I pulled her against me, our bodies fitting together perfectly. I could feel her warmth radiating into me, each kiss sending electric waves through my veins. Her hands roamed up my arms, tracing the muscles before tangling in my hair, pulling me closer and urging me to explore further. As I broke the kiss, I looked into her eyes, seeing the reflection of the heat and passion we'd ignited in each other. I pressed my forehead against hers, savoring the moment, feeling both exhilarated and vulnerable. "Are you sure about this?" I whispered, my voice barely above a breath. Her answer came in the form of a soft smile, and she nodded, her eyes locking with mine. "I've never been more sure of anything," she replied, her voice steady and full of warmth. With that affirmation, I leaned down again, capturing her lips. This time I stepped back, gently guiding her onto the bed. The mattress felt soft and inviting, and as she sank into it, I hovered over her, the anticipation in the air palpable. I took my time, letting my lips trail along her neck, kissing softly along her collarbone, savoring every moment as I felt her body shiver beneath my touch. Her fingers danced along my back, urging me on as I explored her, inch by tantalizing inch, savoring every gasp, every sigh that escaped her lips. I paused for a moment, looking down at her. The way she looked at me, filled with longing and trust, took my breath away. I leaned in closer, our bodies aligning perfectly as I pressed against her. My hand brushed her thigh, a soft yet possessive gesture that sent a shiver through both of us. As the rain continued to beat against the window, I lost myself in her, the world outside fading away. I moved with intensity, fueled by our connection. Every kiss, every touch, exploring the depths of our desires. Our bodies moved in sync, lost in the rhythm of passion, and I felt a sense of fulfillment wash over me as each moment pulled us closer together. The night stretched on, filled with whispered laughter and gasps of pleasure as we completely lost ourselves in each other. The boundaries of our friendship blurred, replaced by something deeper, something wild and beautiful. I had never imagined a night could unfold like this. Each moment brought us closer, wrapping us in a cocoon of intimacy. Eventually, as exhaustion crept in, I laid beside her, my arm draped protectively around her shoulders. We were both panting, our breaths mingling as we took in the aftermath of our connection. I felt her fingers lightly tracing patterns on my chest, and I leaned down, kissing her forehead softly, savoring the warmth of her body against mine. "Tonight was incredible," I murmured, my heart swelling with emotions I couldn't quite name. She turned toward me, a soft smile gracing her lips. "It really was," she replied, her eyes sparkling with satisfaction and a hint of mischief. "I think I could get used to this." As we drifted into a peaceful slumber, the rain outside began to lighten, but inside our hearts remained intertwined, forever changed by this unexpected night of passion. I knew then that this was just the beginning of something special, a story woven with threads of desire, friendship, and newfound love. We lay entwined in each other's arms, basking in the afterglow of our passion. The world outside slowly returned to normal. The rain had lightened, and the rhythmic patter against the window created a soothing background to our whispered conversations and soft laughter. Just as I was drifting off to sleep, the sharp ring of the doorbell jolted me awake. I froze, my heart racing as I glanced at her. A mix of surprise and panic appeared in her eyes. The reality of the moment crashed down on us. Her son, my friend, was home. "Is that him?" she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah, it's him," I replied, my mind racing. We quickly scrambled to straighten ourselves up, but the frantic rustling of sheets and clothing only added to the chaos. The doorbell rang again, more urgently this time, making my pulse quicken. "Quick, hide!" she urged, her eyes wide with urgency. I glanced around the room, desperately searching for a place to go. Without thinking, I dove into the closet, pressing myself against the wall, my heart pounding in my ears. I held my breath, straining to hear what was happening outside the bedroom. "Mom, are you home?" I heard my friend call out, his voice echoing through the house. "I thought I'd find you here," he said. She opened the door to the living room, her demeanor shifting from flustered to composed. "Yes, I'm here," she replied, her voice steady despite the chaos in her heart. I could see her through the back of the closet door, standing tall, her expression betraying nothing. I couldn't help but admire her poise in such a tense moment. "Did you get caught in the storm?" he asked, stepping inside, completely unaware of the atmosphere in the house. I held my breath, wishing I could see his face, wondering how much he sensed. "Just a little shower," she replied, a hint of nervousness creeping into her voice. "But I'm fine. How was your day?" "It was good. I was hoping we could hang out. I brought some snacks from the store," he said cheerfully. I couldn't help but smirk, amused by the normality of his words in contrast to the intensity of what had just happened. "Of course, just give me a moment," she said, glancing back toward the bedroom door as if sensing my presence. I held my breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Would she invite him in? Would he sense something amiss? "All right, I'll be right there," she said, turning away from the door and heading back toward me. I could see the resolve in her eyes, a determination not to let this moment slip away. "Quick, get dressed," she whispered urgently, her heart racing just as fast as mine. I quickly dressed, trying to quiet my frantic thoughts. I could hear my friend moving around in the living room, the sound of bags rustling as he rummaged through them. "Do you think he knows?" I asked quietly, panic creeping into my voice. "No, he can't," she replied, biting her lip, a mixture of excitement and fear on her face. "Just act normal. We'll figure it out." With one last glance at each other, we braced ourselves for the return to reality. I stepped out of the closet, my heart still pounding, and joined her in the living room, just as my friend turned back toward us with a big grin on his face. "There you are. I was starting to think you were hiding from me," he laughed, completely oblivious to the charged energy in the air. "Just getting a few things organized," she replied smoothly, shooting me a glance that spoke volumes. As we settled into the evening, laughter filled the room, masking the tension and unspoken words between us. My heart was still racing, the memory of our passion lingering in the back of my mind. It was a delicate balance between friendship and new feelings, but in that moment, surrounded by the warmth of connection and the thrill of what had just happened, I knew one thing for certain. This was just the beginning of a complicated, beautiful story that neither of us could have anticipated.
Like the video, share with your family and friends, and subscribe to our channel. See you on the next one.